L'chaim, l'chaim. First of all, we have to verbring. Chassidische verbringen can accomplish what Malach Michal cannot accomplish. And the first and foremost is the wishing and the blessing, which is Azman Grama, for every single one of us and for every single Jew, wherever they may be in the entire world, and especially in Eretz HaKodesh, Eretz Asherei Ne'avai L'kecha Ba Meireshis Hashana V'adachis Shana. There should be a ksiva, v'chsima teva, shana teva, u'mesuka to each and every one. I just saw a video of the Rebbe where a lady passes by the Rebbe by dollars. It seems a news reporter. She's coming with a notebook and a pencil. She asks the Rebbe, Rabbi, what's your message for the new year? And the Rebbe says, my message is Aksiva v'chsima teva shana teva mituka. Now, she turns to the Rebbe and says, can you translate now? And the Rebbe said, there's no need for me to translate. It's in all the machzorim and in the sidurim. And if I'll translate, if it may not be exactly the same as it says in the machzor, they won't reprint what it says in the machzor. So just open up a machzor or a siddur and you'll see what it says. It doesn't need translation because translation can only take away from it. It needs to only be fulfilled in Poyel Mamish. And that the main thing, as we say, Chassidische verbringen can accomplish what even Malach Michal can't accomplish. That we should have the one and only thing that we need now. And as we've told already before, that there was by a verbringen, it was during the years of the Second World War, and someone said to Friedrich Rebbe, L'chaim should be Yeshua's v'nechamis. And the Friedrich Rebbe said, Ein Yeshua bar arichtike. We don't need Yeshua's and nechamis. We need one thing. We need one Yeshua. We need the coming, this galus of Melech HaMashiach immediately. Everything else will be already taken care of automatically. Automatically will be Aksiva V'chsima Teva. Automatically everyone will have what they need. Automatically we'll have everything. The only thing that we can want is that Mashiach comes and we're all together in Yerushalayim, HaKodesh, and the Beis HaMikdash HaShlishi. This Shabbos is Shabbos Parshas Shoftim. There's no need to repeat, but nevertheless to just renew our connection, our idea. 33 years ago, Gal Einai Vabita Niflois Miterasecha. Gal, open up our eyes, and now's the time for Gal Einai, open up and uncover and reveal in our eyes that truth that the Rebbe 33 years ago told us on Parshas Shoftim. The directive, the request, the command of the Nasi Adair to every single person to be mefarsim, to publicize, to call Anshi Adair, to all the people that exist in our generation, that they should know that there is someone whom the Eibishter chose, who on his own is a Bal B'chira, he has free choice, and yet he is mitzad atzmai. In his own way, he's shaloi be'erech, incomparably higher than all the people of the generation, and that Hashem chose him to be the shayfet, the judge of the generation, the advisor of the generation, and the Navi, the prophet of the generation. And that our job, our mission of every single person in our generation is to accept and to fulfill his directives, his advice, and most importantly, his prophecies, and the most important prophecy, which is that la'alter legula, immediate redemption, and hine zeh Mashiach ba. This is the prophecy, and this is the command and the directive of the Rebbe to us, to every single one of us, to publicize it. And even though there's people with questions, how can I publicize it? What will people think? What will my family think? What will the Balabatim think? Will they think I'm crazy? Will they think I'm promoting myself? Will they stop giving me money? Will they stop supporting me? What's going to be with everybody? What about the questions What about all the questions that I have? What about the questions others have? What about the halachas of nevuah? Does it work? Does it not work? How does it work? It doesn't matter. That's not the point. We know that the Rebbe tells us, and the Rebbe tells us what's al pi Torah, that there's a nevuah. There's no need to start asking questions and discussions, how and what and when. Yeah, it's a nice pilpul. But the pale mamish, the practical side, is what the Rebbe told us to do and what we're doing. There's a story that the Frierdiker Rebbe tells. The Alter Rebbe himself told this story. The Alter Rebbe, when he was traveling, the Alter Rebbe told this story to Chassidim when he was a Talmud of the Maggid. So he wasn't yet officially a Rebbe, he was a student of the Rebbe of the generation of the Maggid. And he came to a certain inn. He was on the way traveling to the Maggid. He came to an inn, and he asked the innkeeper, is there a minyan in town? And the innkeeper said no. So he asked the innkeeper, what do you do for a minyan? So he says, well, once a year, Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, we go into town, we go into the big city where there's a minyan, and we daven with a minyan. The rest of the year, we don't have a minyan. And the Alter Rebbe, almost like Derech Agav, by the way, said, how's it possible a Jew should live in a place where there's no minyan? It comes the next morning, and the Alter Rebbe sees there's wagons, moving trucks in our language, putting all of everything he has on the wagons. And the Alter Rebbe says, what's going on? He said, I'm moving. I understand. You said that you have a good parnasa here. You have a good livelihood here. And you don't know if you'll find it somewhere else. What are you moving? So he said, what do you mean? You told me you're a student of the Maggid. And you said that a Jew can't live in a place without a minyan, so I'm moving. There was no question. Immediately he continued. This was a simple Jew, and he didn't ask any questions. The Rebbe said something, he did it, and it wasn't even the Rebbe, it was the Rebbe's student. And the Alter Rebbe said it is Chassidim, and he said, what about you? You're officially Chassidim, and you learn my Chassidus, and yet when I say something, there's questions, yes, no, how, and what. The fact is that in today's day, we see it for those who want to. We see it as clearly as possible. That when someone stands up and tells people in the world, there's a Rebbe, they come flocking because they want to ask questions and they want to get the Rebbe's answers. And when they get the Rebbe's answers, they fulfill it. It's automatic. I had a guy just now, 2 weeks ago. He came to me actually a month ago. He wanted to write to the Rebbe. He had a certain inyan that he needed for health. And he wrote to the Rebbe. And the Rebbe's answer was that he should spread Yiddishkeit. A simple Jew, you would call him borderline frum or whatever it might be, not a big chassid, and not even a big ben Teira or frum yid mamish, a simple Jew. And he says, what do you mean I'll spread Yiddishkeit? What do I know about Yiddishkeit? And we said, the Rebbe said, spread Yiddishkeit, spread Yiddishkeit. He came back to write to the Rebbe again, and he says to me, like, by the way, yeah, I started a shir every week in my house. Spread Yiddishkeit. The Rebbe said, spread Yiddishkeit. He started a shir. The simplicity, the Baal Shem Tov says, the pshitos or atzmos is in the pshitos, and the simplicity of a simple Jew is the simplicity of atzmos of the Eibishter. But we have to be simple Jews when it comes to fulfilling what the Rebbe tells us. When it comes to doing what the Rebbe commands us, we have to be simple Jews, and it's obvious that we haven't yet. And v'horaya, because we still haven't merited what we are looking for and what we want is Galus and Mashiach. And so we have to do it. Questions, put in the question book. But facts and practicalities is to do what the Rebbe tells us and do what the Rebbe commands us to do. And with a simplicity like that simple Jew, the way he listened to the Alter Rebbe. I want to read a letter, and because this letter is something which is so powerful, I'm going to, unlike usual, I'm going to translate the entire letter. First of all, L'chaim. The letter is a letter to Reb Shlomo Chaim Kesselman. This is in Tavshin Tes. It's dated Chamisha Asar B'Shvat Tavshin Tes. Rosh Hashanah Leilanis, and the Rebbe adds Ha'adam Eitz HaSadeh. Shlomo Chaim Kesselman, Chassidish Yid and Mashpia. At that time in Paris, he was in charge of Maimed. Maimed is what Chassidim, what the Rebbe says here, not only Chassidim, but Jews who are all connected to the Nasi of the generation. The Iskashrus also comes in a physical way by giving money to support the Rebbe's home, the Rebbe's moistus, etc., etc. It's the Maimed, as the Rebbe explains, it means it's Maimid. It sets up the person's connection to the Rebbe in the most physical manner. And I'll read what the Rebbe answers to him, and from that we can understand a little bit what his letter was. And so the Rebbe says the following: you write, and this is Tafshin Tes. This is 1 year before the Istalkos of the Fidik Rebbe. And it's interesting because the Rebbe is writing almost as a chassid. And it's very rare. Most of the letters of the Rebbe from those years are very practical. Answers to questions, answers to Torah questions, answers to practical things. But here it's mamish a Rebbe letter. A letter where the Rebbe writes as a Rebbe. And the Rebbe says the following: you write about how it's impossible to work about the idea of nifne. Nifne is what Chassidim called maimet, because you take the letter after, because of the fear of the Russian secret police. So they changed the mem to nun, etc., etc. Amongst the people of the city, only amongst the Chassidim and the Tmimim, them you can work for maimet. But other people, he explains with various reasons why it's impossible, the Rebbe says. To talk to the regular people in Paris about giving money for the Rebbe's family. And the Rebbe says, 2.5 lines before you write this, you write to me the following: Anash, here in Paris, or Mikushar, are connected to the Rebbe with all of their hearts and souls, till Mesirus Nefesh B'Poyel Mamish. When as mezol de hasten krichin and lach, will tell them to crawl into a hole, they'll crawl into the hole. Says the Rebbe, this is what you write to me. The Rebbe says, you don't even realize that there's a contradiction between what you wrote 2.5 lines earlier and what you're writing now. And the Rebbe says, I'll tell you why. We see by facts, we see Al Pi HaNisayon, we see that that's what the reality showed us. That in any place, the Rebbe emphasizes, where people were involved in Nifne, in Maimed, in the later years, in the most recent years, whether in the United States, Canada, South America, or South Africa, etc., they had an effect. Even though each place is different, depends on the people, etc. The Rebbe said they didn't need Mesiras Nefesh, they didn't need to crawl into a hole. Not only that, but they realized that their own situation physically and spiritually became better. And their honor and respect in the eyes of the people that they got involved with and they worked with them with regarding this became more and more. And at the end of the day, you see that they're the ones who receive, not even the ones who are giving, even physically, even monetarily. They're gaining by the fact that they got involved in talking to people about Maimet. But in your country, now the Rebbe says, you're explaining to me that you have Mesiras Nefesh, you're ready to do anything, you're ready to give over, and the Rebbe says, what does Mesiras Nefesh mean? Give your intellect away, give your Tam V'das, give your reason and understanding away to the Rebbe. And yet, you tell me it's impossible. And the Rebbe says, I'm not talking to a specific person, and the Rebbe says, I'm talking to all the people. And the Rebbe continues to say, there's no question that whatever is needed to fill your main purpose in your country that you're in, which is to spread and disseminate the well springs of the Baal Shem Tov and Alter Rebbe amongst all the people in the streets of France. And the Rebbe says there is no other well through which the mayanis of the Baal Shem Tov, through which the well springs of the Baal Shem Tov and the Alter Rebbe are brought, other than one, which is my father-in-law, the Rebbe Shlita. And through connecting to this mayon, to this well, which means connecting physically, which is with money, which you can acquire life of your life soul, and connecting spiritually, then any waters, even waters which are not pure waters, become pure waters, because that's the halacha of Torah in the simple sense. And that is Torah is the one that directs the nature of the world everywhere, wherever it may be. The Rebbe says, now in your letter, you're telling me, and it seems the reason you're saying this is because you're actually not doing anything. Not you, the people aren't doing things. And that seems to be that's what all of Anash in your place decided, and you're telling me cold-bloodedly. And the Rebbe says the word geyser, you're decreeing, but the word geyser also means schneit up, you're cutting away. That all of our Jewish brothers in your place, besides those who are in your direct area, have no connection to all of this. It says, call a meeting of Anash, make a cheshbon tzedek. How much did they work in order to get souls for this? And then you won't have to have any discussion, because right away you're going to realize why nothing's happening, because you haven't done anything. Now the Rebbe tells a story. And the Rebbe's story is the following. There's an avrich, a young man, who needed, for whatever reason, to run away, to escape from his place. He's not shaykh to avedas atfilah. He's not a maskil. He's not an Ovid. He doesn't have a beard, etc., etc. And he never learned in Teim Chitmimim. He never learned in yeshiva at all. He had to move because, as we said, he had to run away. He had to escape for whatever reason it is to a very far away country, both physically and in inyanim of Yiddishkeit. It's very distant. Now, a little while after this person moved there, to this place, this person who doesn't have a beard, didn't learn in Teim Chitmim, didn't learn in a yeshiva, not shaykh to any of the holy things that Chassidim are shaykh to. And yet, a little while after he comes to this distant country, suddenly there starts arriving their letters to my father-in-law, to the Rebbe Shlita. For example, the Rebbe says, a woman who's a businesswoman, and they're suggesting to her that she should rent a storefront in one part of the city or another part of the city. She wants to know which part of the city should she get it to, and she's writing a letter to the Rebbe and asking what should she do. So she knows she never saw the Rebbe. She knows that the Rebbe never came to her city and not even to her country, and yet she's not a Chassidist. She doesn't come from Anash, and she's not even from the offspring from Gezer of Anash. But when she heard from this young man, and he was speaking in Dvarim Hayetzim in Alev, in words that come from the heart, Yesh Rebbe b'Yisrael, there's a Rebbe in Israel. And he's not under the limitations of nature, the natural limitations. And someone who wants to go properly and succeed, whether in business, whether in the way they run a home, etc., will not lift his hand without asking the Rebbe. And this is what this young man says. And remember, this young man was also not a chassid. And she realized that this young man, his mouth and his heart are equal, meaning she sees that what he's saying is true. So she right away told her secretaries or whatever to write the question to the Rebbe. Once she writes a question, she's automatically now shaykh to Nifna, and she's been closer to Yiddishkeit, and definitely within the course of the days, she's going to start behaving in her home in kashrus and taras hamishpacha, etc., etc. This all comes from the outcome of a simple young man. And he's not doing it because he has Mesiras Nefesh or Kabbalas oil, because for him it's not unnatural. It doesn't go against intellect. It's not even against his human intellect. And the Rebbe says, take a look. It's simple by this person, based on what he saw clearly, that when the Rebbe says something, it's true. And when the Rebbe gives a bracha, it's a bracha. And his Nefesh Abamis also agrees to this. Because it doesn't come from intellect or from discussion or from what he saw in Sfarim. He saw it based on his own, what he saw in his life, of his own life and of people around him, people who he knew. And he saw clearly that when he listened to the Rebbe, it's good. And when he doesn't listen to the Rebbe, he has a psak. That means that things don't go well. And therefore, just like he's not embarrassed to tell his friends and the people who know him, who need it, the address of a good doctor. So also, when he sees a person who's in a situation, or he has a life question, he tells him, Loi alman chas v'shalom Yisrael. The Jewish people are not chas v'shalom lacking. There is who to ask. And not only that, but he doesn't wait until his friend comes to ask him what to do if there's a Rebbe, because most of the time his friend doesn't even know what a Rebbe is. But he goes to him and he explains to him not to rely on his own understanding, not to rely on the shadchan, not to rely on the doctor or on the mediator, etc. Because all of these are only questionable things. But there is a certain way how to answer your questions, and that's a Rebbe. And Chazal say that what comes out of the heart goes into the heart. And so now the Rebbe continues and says, and we have to cut this short, but it's anyone can look. It's in Chela Gimel Igris Kedesh. The Rebbe says, in your place where you are, there's from the best of Anash, those who saw the Rebbe Rashab and Lahavdil, they saw Ben Chaim L'Chaim, L'Chaya Chaim, they saw the Frierdiker Rebbe, my father-in-law, the Rebbe Shlita. They were tested with all types of nisyonis. They are involved in Haskalah and understanding citizen, avodah of davening, etc., etc. And the Rebbe says, first you were in a camp, because that was when they left Russia, so they came into the displaced DP camps, where there were thousands of Jews that were thirsty to hear a warm word, a lebedik vart, to hear a word of Iseiros and Kirov. And the young ones amongst them, mostly what they wanted is a direction. Ayehu Moshe Zeha Ish. Where is Moshe, the person that will bring us up from the limitations and show us the way of life? People were waiting, they were thirsty to hear, where is Moshe? And the question is, how many souls were added through their involvement, through their hard work, to the Torah of the Baal Shem Tov and Alter Rebbe while they were there in the camps? So Rebbe continues, while they were there, I wrote to the biggest camp of Anash, and I asked them to get involved in the people in the camp, and especially in the youth, with spiritual maimed, because at that time I figured that there's no need to start with Gashmis, with physical maimed. And they answer me, it's a very good thing, but first they have to make a meeting, and they're going to make a decision, and they're going to decide how to start, whether to start, and they need to make sure that there's enough money to cover the costs, etc. And then they're going to decide how to do it. And I think they chose a vad, and the outcome is known and obvious. So now Anash was busy, and they got Agim mattered, they got Farmuchet over there, and it seems that with them they mattered, and they saw that it's a Rachmanis Anyin, that means the Eibishter decided that it's a Rachmanis Anyin because it's not working anyway. So they brought them instead, the Eibishter brought them to Irnei Sheves, to a settled city, and maybe it's going to work, but now the same thing is happening again in the big city. What's the outcome, the Rebbe says, of all the things that are happening in Paris and everything around it? The Rebbe says, 1.5 years ago I was in Paris, and I spoke to them about doing them. And Mipnei HaKavod, because of the respect for me, so they got a vad, and they said they'll get involved with the people. But I see they're not doing anything with it. Not in spiritual maimed, not in physical maimed, which in general, unless there's a specific time, they have to go together. The Rebbe says, I would be also very happy if someone in the end of the day would tell me that I really don't know about what's going on, and there's tens of people that not only were Nispal, and they gave donations for the Moistis, but they accepted from them, and they learned from them Chassidus, and they became Chassidim, or at least a little bit Mekusher. But the Rebbe says, I see in your letter that not only it doesn't happen, but it's actually Mufrach. In your eyes, in the eyes of Anash, it's not even possible, such a thing. The Rebbe says, obviously, it takes a lot of work to be involved in our own Dal Damis, and you have to be constantly working about it. But even guarding the Beis HaMikdash demanded it was only one Avodah, and not all the Kohanim were involved in it. The Rebbe says, obviously, if you meet a guy and you'll say to him, Jid, Davoy Groshi, Jew, give money, I'm going to give it to a person who lives thousands of parsa away, you don't know him, and he doesn't have any shaykhs with you, but he has a lot of big milas. So obviously it's going to be like a joke. But on the other hand, a person who believes with Emunah Shleima, that everything that the Emunah directs everything of his, and he believes that the ideas and the bracha of so-and-so, Bakoil Mashallah rules over everything. And he knows that his friend has to make an important decision, a life decision, a decision of Parnasa, or even an inin of sakana, a dangerous thing. So even mitzad menschlichkeit, mitzad aves Yisrael, mitzad pikuach nefesh, if he has a hope or a sveka, a question, maybe he's going to listen to him. He has to run after his friend and say to him, have pity on yourself and on your family and everything that you own. Don't rely on your own understanding. Learn Chassidus, be connected to Pliny and Pliny, and do what he says, and then you'll be successful. And the Rebbe says it's known, the promise of the Alter Rebbe, that whatever Chassidim will do, they'll be successful. It says the fact that you didn't see is not a proof. And the Rebbe says, I have not yet seen even one person that writes in his letter to the Rebbe that he was niskarev now to Chabad because of one of the Anashus there. He says you're coming in Paris and around it with hundreds and perhaps thousands and thousands of Achinu B'nai Yisrael Ken Yirbu. And you talk to them long or short things. How many of these thousands turn to the Rebbe and ask a question about a operation or about a shidduch, or ask a bracha for Rosh Hashanah, etc.? Do you really think that if you told them who's the Rebbe, Lubavitcher Rebbe, tell them a story, don't even explain it, and then next time tell them a little bit of his siches, and then tell them about his directives, you'll have many souls, them and their children and children's children, ad ein safe, that they would be connected through them in Ilana Dechai, in the tree of life, and they would add light in their homes. They would become Anshe Moshe, and they would mele become Anshe Maimed, and they would support also the Moistis happily, B'Sever Panim Yafis, not only because of COVID. And instead of all of this, each person is turning, this guy's busy with his moised, this guy's busy with his business, everybody calms himself that he's giving nifna nicely, and they justify themselves by the fact that, like you write, that they have prepared Mesiras Nefesh, B'Peil Mamish, but the Avodah, the work hasn't even started. And the Rebbe says, and this is going on for more than a year, and amongst the Nashu are Neiris Lahoyer, and do you really think that it's the people of Paris and around that, it's their issue? And the Rebbe speaks about, the Rebbe says the idea of Galus all started from the concept of Tzimtzum Arishan, from the Egel, before that from Yotari Yareach, before them Tzimtzum Arishan. Tzimtzum means that the light goes only to a certain place and it doesn't go any further. And the Rebbe says again, the Rebbe, that this is basically the idea. So it's already, we're running out of the time, but the concept and the point is, the Rebbe told us what to do. The Rebbe gave us Ayirah. The Rebbe said, go around and tell the people of the generation that there is a Shefet, a Yeyetz, a Navi, a Deir, and that his Nevuah is La'alter Legula. We have a mission to go around and tell people, to tell ourselves, to tell our families, to tell whoever we can come into reach, whoever we can come into contact with, and to tell them there's a Rebbe. Write to the Rebbe, you'll get a bracha. Ask the Rebbe and let the Rebbe's advice affect, because Memela, the Rebbe will bring light into their lives and will bring them closer to Geula, and Memela bring the whole world closer, and not just closer, but that will already have the ultimate, which is the ultimate that we were told to do and that we can do and we will do. By the fact that we're connected to the Rebbe, we'll connect to the Shofetz and Yoyetz, and not just because Kabbalah Sir, like the Rebbe says, but because it makes sense. It's the Yoyetz, it's the advisor, it makes sense. It makes sense that right now we have a Navi who tells us Mashiach is coming, that we and everyone whom we can come into contact with can prepare ourselves and be ready to be Mekabel Pnei Mashiach Tzidkeinu immediately before Shabbos Parshas Shoftim, before the continuation of Erev Shabbos, and to go together with him to the Gula Mitis Vashleimat Yerushalayim Irakedesh, to Beis Hamikdash Ashlishi immediately. L'chaim, Mashiach now, and all the brachas memela will come to every single Jew. B'teva nireva nigle, the open brachas in the most open revealed way, l'chaim.